Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hey everyone, checking in on the MJ sector. Today's news was marked by Curaleaf getting a letter from the FDA. Pretty much, I'm certainly no legal expert, but my interpretation of what went down is the Curaleaf website had claims on it that, in hindsight, looking back at those, someone dropped the ball big time to allow that to happen. And you compare those claims to what other websites like CWeb and IAN with CBD for Life and what they have on their websites, it's a night and day difference where clearly people knew what they were doing on the other websites to, hide their claims, not hide them, but not make blatant claims that can't be proven, whereas Curaleaf did not have that. So someone on the legal team was not paying attention at Curaleaf. They're taking a hit for it. It's definitely a blunder by management. There's no other way to cut it. The question is, will there have to be recalls of the products that are already out there on the shelves? What do the products have on their labeling? I don't know, but on the grand scheme of things, it looks like it's only a labeling issue and a wording issue, and they need to change that to comply with the lack of scientific-based evidence at this point in time and, approval by the FDA to make such claims. So that's where we stand. We'll get to the US MJ sector here in the second half, and I did trade Curaleaf on the bounce. We'll go over that as well. We'll cover that first when we get to the US, but we'll go through Canada first. Canadian names didn't really care what was going on in the US. So we have our daily higher lows now set. CGC, we have the low of the dump, high of the bounce. Our higher low is set because we formed a double bottom, the low of the last 2 days, and then we broke the high of yesterday. So that's a little hourly trend change if we were to zoom in. And now it's all about 36.74. If 36.74 breaks, we will have the first clear daily trend change in the last 3+ months. If that level does not break, the bears keep complete control. So the bulls really need a green day tomorrow to try and get some follow through, because if we were to see a bear break of 34.41 without breaking 36.74, the odds that we're going to head down to 33.38 would increase very significantly. And again, the bulls it would just be another example of the bulls failing to get any momentum or any shift in their favor. Kron breaking short-term resistance by getting over the recent high of 15.33. 15.85 is the next most important resistance level for me. But for Kron, now the most clarity is on the weekly time frame. So we have the low of the dump, high of the bounce, higher low was 13.91, and now we're looking at 17.86. Anything under 17.86 on the weekly time frame will just be a lower high, and it's possible that we could stay in this weekly tightening range into the fall. So through August, if we see a little bit of follow through, and then we see a little bit of a pullback, middle to end of August is when we're going to be looking for a potential break, but we do need a bit more follow through. I want to see the bulls get over that 15.85 resistance to believe that we can stay in this weekly tightening range. And if that weekly tightening range breaks bullish, if we change the weekly trend, our monthly higher low will very clearly be set at that point. We're just grinding the exponential support and looking for this monthly higher low and clarity. We don't have it yet, but the bulls are attempting to get that on the weekly time frame. Hourly support consolidated a little bit at the end of the day, not much. 15.19 and then 15 psychological are supports. For CGC, our hourly higher low is 35.23. I got something in my throat. So ACB, bounce attempt from yesterday, got no follow through, and we have just a tightening range. So the hourly chart, low of yesterday, high of the bounce. Low of today was a higher low, unable to break the high of the bounce. So just an hourly equilibrium, make it a little bit more clear. Take off the extended hours. We have the low, high, higher low, lower high. Support is 658, resistance is 678 and 681. If we get a bull break of this hourly tightening range, we're going to zoom out and look for a daily lower high. If we get a bear break of the tightening range, we're going to look for the low of 644 as the next key support level. APHA just barely held $6 support, but we did bounce above that level. Have we changed the hourly trend? The answer is no. It's an hourly tightening range. The bulls have to show up tomorrow and break 620 and 623, 624 for this bounce to be underway. If we break 624, we'll have our daily high or low established, and we'll then look for a daily lower high compared to 668 and a tightening daily range here as well with the exponential resistance on watch. The bears are favored in a setup like this because the distance to break support is so much closer than the distance to break resistance. If we were going to see the bulls favored, we would have pulled back and held maybe 640 and then tried to see continuation, giving the entirety of the bounce back obviously favors the bears. ACB already dropped to the lower low. So Kron and CGC, again, how many times have we seen correlation between Kron and CGC and ACB and APHA, two little groups, subsets, and Kron and CGC certainly looking stronger over the last week and a half compared to APHA and ACB. TLRY. So TLRY, and we also had some news after hours buying I think it was an alcohol candy company or something. Anyways, they're looking to do edibles with CBD with that. But after hours, there's a move. So a little bit of upside. We'll see if that carries over into tomorrow. But we had a green day. Anything under 45.48 is just a lower high. But again, we're scouting for our weekly higher low to form. And perhaps this little news catalyst can shift the momentum enough for the bulls to try and bounce. Best case scenario, in my opinion, for the bulls on the daily would be an inverse head and shoulders. If we bounce into tomorrow, and if we fail to break 45.48, then we look for a little consolidation, and then a change of the daily trend would have us looking for that weekly higher low to be established. That's looking a little bit far in the future. Let's just look at it one day at a time. Bulls likely to break the high of today tomorrow, but it's all about 45.48, the daily lower high of resistance. CTST fading back down after the double top of 320. That really sucked the momentum out of the bulls, and now we're just slow fading back down. Only support level is 243, and if we see a break of 243, the next level we're going to be looking at, just psychological, 240, 230, and at this point we have an hourly downtrend to be watching. Anything under 273 is just an hourly lower high, and pretty much on the daily time frame until we break 320, bulls aren't going to prove anything, and that's not happening anytime soon without a very significant news catalyst. OGI, still looking for this daily equilibrium. I'm looking for hourly oversold conditions. If we can see a drop down to hourly oversold, perhaps a flush under $6 psychological, we'll look for the potential. I don't know if I'll play it. I haven't traded OGI in a while, but it would be the potential to begin scaling into hourly oversold conditions to look for a daily higher low to form. The bulls still have plenty of space. We can drop 10% and still be holding this daily support level. So I anticipate a daily higher low is going to form either tomorrow or Thursday. And then we'll see if the bulls can bounce and then form a daily lower high and see a tightening equilibrium, which in my opinion is the most likely scenario. Hexo continuing to drop down on increased bear volume. Exponential resistance has been a very clear guide, keeping the bears in full control. Anything on the daily under 515 will be our lower high. Where's the next support? Again, we're just watching for a monthly higher low, but there's so much space we could pull back another 20% and still easily be forming a monthly higher low. So there is no real clear nearby support to be watching. I'm looking down at 454. That already broke. So really just looking down at, if I had to pick levels, it would be 441 and 434 as the next levels. Hourly lower high pattern intact. Anything under 462 is just a lower high. What are our RSI levels like? They're getting oversold, but I would like to see them extreme if I'm going to be playing an oversold bounce, which means mid to low 20s on the longer term RSI levels like the daily and the 4 hour. But you show me that weekly chart and how extended that is. Definitely getting interested. Not to say that I'm going to try and catch a falling knife, but when we do see shifts in momentum, keep an eye on Hexo over the next month. I will be. VFF topping out volume climax. We had an upgrade. I don't know if it was after hours or pre-market, I forget. But bulls getting their last push up. We have resistance. We broke one resistance level, but not the one right behind it. We had a resistance at 1510 and at 1544. So we broke 1510. We did not break 1533, which gives us the setup where we're watching for an inverse head and shoulders pattern. Best case scenario for the bulls is to consolidate and form a daily high or low. And it would be more along the lines of like this for the inverse head and shoulders. If we form a daily high or low, turn around and break both these resistance levels to change the daily trend, that's what the bulls have to do. Again, just another name in the MJ sector with a very significant bounce, 30%. But if we do not change the trend, it means nothing as far as shifting momentum. We must see the continuation move, which so many names have seen significant bounces and failed that continuation move. Even Curaleaf now is on the hook for potentially not being able to confirm a daily trend change with its bearish news. TGOD dropping down, breaking 306 to lower lows. Anything on the daily under 330 just a lower high. We were watching close for TGOD to see if they could hold this support level and then try and see a break of a tightening range. They didn't. It's increasing bear volume. So I've lost interest again. We're looking down at 299 as support. Next support level after that is going to be down at 278. And the difference between TGOD, I look at this weekly time frame. Why am I not interested in TGOD like I am in Hexo? Look at the Hexo weekly time frame. Look at how many little bounces to cool off RSI levels we've had. And look at what the candlesticks look like. And then you look at TGOD, and it's much different. Little cool off bounces. If I'm playing a shift in momentum, I want to see as extreme as possible to the downside, knowing that the bounce and the recoil back up will be a bit more extreme if that is the case. So let's go to US now. Curaleaf. So I already talked about the letter, and we had a dump first thing, and we could see there was a red flag before we got wind of the letter. That came about 7-8 minutes into the open before we realized something was up. Well, actually, we realized something was up right away. Then we saw the news 7 or 8 minutes into the open. But the first 5 minutes, it was a double top. So high of 1070, we rejected at 1069. So I thought it was just a double top and then a lack of liquidity with a lot of people exiting at the same time on that double top. But clearly, it was the news event. And you can see if you zoom in, when did the news hit by volume? And the news pretty much hit 6 minutes into the trading day. So the first 6 minutes, nothing unusual. A rejection from the double top, absolutely. But it wasn't until when did that news hit that we saw a complete dump. And in 2 minutes, there was, $2.5, almost $3 million dumped in 2 minutes. So I played this bounce. And I played it on CURLF. So we'll just look at that for a moment. And then we'll get back to the Canadian ticker and see where we stand from here. But how did I play this? Number one, RSI levels can get to extremes when it's news related. That was definitely the case in this instance. And we were looking at an all-out dump. Why I was interested in this name? Number one, liquidity and volume. I know there's more liquidity in this name than there are on most US MJ names. And there's a lot of volume. I also know that we just had very bullish news that led to a significant move and that there's a lot of people trading it and there's a lot of eyes on it right now. That's what I want to see. So we started pulling back and getting to extreme. I made my first entry, and again, I should have looked at my orders before I did the video, but I didn't. So my orders, very roughly speaking, not very roughly, but roughly speaking, right about 740, I made my first entry and scaling in. I don't know when the bottom's going to be. I don't expect to nail the bottom. So I'm scaling in. So I entered one order at 740, let's say, give or take a couple pennies. And then I said, all right, I will enter one more order on a flush of $7, which I did. We flushed under $7. I entered. That gave me an average in the 17s, the upper 17s. So let's just call it 718. And I then said to myself, I don't want any more shares. At that point, my position size was half of what a normal day trading position size for CGC would be, but I have to keep it smaller because the liquidity is not the same on Curaleaf than it is on CGC. So if I'm trading, however many shares, let's say 10,000 shares on CGC, that's $350,000, and I can move in and out of that really quickly on a normal day. 10,000 shares here is 80,000. It's way less, and I would compare that share amount. I would say 10,000 at Curaleaf is roughly essentially as easy to get in and out of as 10,000 of CGC. But obviously the price level difference makes the dollar amount very different. So I scaled in, I got my average, and I said to myself, okay, I'm not entering anything else because the last thing I want to be doing is entering into bad news and then just building my position bigger and bigger, getting way bigger than I want, having my losses continue to add up. So I cut myself off. At that point, I said, I'm not adding anymore. And then I patiently waited. And we started to get some details out. You have to anticipate that the first wave of the reaction is obviously the most brutal, lasting 20, 30 minutes or whatever. And then you have to assume, okay, after 30 minutes of an all-out dump where we pulled back 12% plus, you have to start figuring that the selling pressure is going to start drying up and people that are looking to play the oversold bounce are going to start getting in. So we did end up starting to bounce. And I said to myself, all right, my first entry was definitely early. That 740 entry, that position ended up being down 7% plus, 8% at the low. So that tells me, okay, I'm in too early. I'm no longer going for a day maker. I'm no longer very comfortable. I'm in protection mode. So we start to bounce, and on the initial bounce, I exit just under break even. So let's say my break even was 718. I sold at 714, half of my position. So what that does is that increases my cost basis 4 pennies because I sold 4 pennies under half of it, under my break even. And so now my 718 average goes to 722. So that just makes me comfortable. That makes me say, okay, I freed up half the cash. If we were to drop to another leg down, the 15-minute time frame would be extremely extended at that point, and I could have that capital to go back in. Maybe at 660, I would re-add, and my break-even would then drop to, I can't do that math in my head right now, but 690. So that gives me, I cut myself off, but now I have that half that I can still play with again and not be too overexposed. I didn't need to end up with that position to reload. And what I said to myself was, I was actually watching the 2-minute time frame, and this is the spike I sold, that real quick one, because I realized, I'm not in a great position here with my break-even price, so I'm going to exit on this first little bounce just in case it's a 2-minute bear flag. So I exited here at 714. I said to myself, I will exit the second half of my position and eat this loss if we break 682 here. And I wouldn't have given up. I would have definitely looked to play the bounce again, but just from the sidelines, all cash. Fortunately, the bulls held that support level at 682, and I did not sell my second half of the position, and then I ended up selling it for small profit. No huge win. Maybe it was a third of a day maker, half of a day maker, but again, because of my initial entry, I was in protection mode as opposed to day maker mode. And that shows you the psychology and the importance of when your first scale in is. Because if I waited even just 10 cents lower, it would make me way more comfortable. If my first entry was 730 and then I entered the second one under $7, my break even is then, down at 713. Even that's a much more comfortable spot to be in. So I recognized that I was not comfortable and bailed on the trade. We did get a little bit more follow through, and then we got the last little spike up on the bounce was, I believe it was a Twitter account, Todd Harrison, saying, CBDs are less than 1% of revenue. We're still sticking with it. And that added that little boost of confidence. So in the end, had I held everything and just played this bounce and sold on this 5-minute candlestick, pretty much, playing hindsight, if I made the perfect exit, I could have ended up with a solid multiple day maker. But again, I'm not going to rely on a tweet to try and save me because I wasn't comfortable. So I wanted out. BGW, nope. Let's go back to Cureleaf and see where we stand from here. So where do we stand on Cureleaf? We have the hourly time frame to be watching, and we are looking like we have our high, low of the dump reaction, high of the bounce is clear resistance at 1012, and it looks like we're going to top out and have to pull back and form an hourly high or low compared to 897. So I would not be surprised to see an hourly equilibrium form tomorrow. High, low, lower high, scouting a higher low compared to 897. That means there's a potential bottom fishing play off of the 897 support tomorrow. I'm expecting a daily inside bar to form. And we'll see how that goes. VGW, clear bear break. So I've been talking about the lack of clarity And I've been talking about how that has made me uncomfortable with any clear setups. 385 is the only nearby support. If we break 385, we're looking down at 337. So now we're clear. We have clarity, and it favors the bears. So the weekly time frame, the last thing the bulls want to see here is a rejection from the all-time high and then a drop down and a break of the low of consolidation. That would be a red flag. If we don't break that, let's look at it on the 2-week time frame, and it would be an equilibrium. Just condensing it for clarity, high, low, lower high, and we would scout a higher low compared to 337. So that's something to watch out for. If the daily RSI were to drop, if we were to drop down 15% in the next few days, and the daily RSI were to get close to oversold, it'd be a great bottom fishing play off of 337 support, but it all depends on the rate at which we head down to that level and how oversold we do get. NEPT, unable to break the all-time high today. Daily inside bar. Looks like consolidation is going to be underway. If we break 606 tomorrow, we're going to look to pull back and form a daily higher low. Our supports are 606 and then 584, and anything under 636 is just an hourly lower high. So we lost the hourly uptrend, and we're close to confirming the hourly downtrend, which means zoom out to the daily and scout the daily higher low to form, potentially using the 12-period exponential support as a visual guide. IIPR, I played this bounce as well today. Played it yesterday as well. I played it twice yesterday. Ended up with 2 very small wins. Again, just being conservative. And did the same thing today. It ended up being a daymaker win, but still being conservative. So I've been surprised that IIPR is dumping so hard on what we're assuming is the hearing in the U.S. about the states and the SAFE Act and how that would hurt IIPR's business model. But it's interesting to me that nowhere else in the market are we pricing in these bills potentially passing. So I would, whenever I see sectors or markets price something in, it's across the board. Whereas it's looking like IIPR bears are pricing in the potential of these bills passing, and no sector bulls are pricing in the potential of these bills passing. So I found that interesting, but either way, we dumped down and broke $100 psychological support. I made my entry on that anticipated climax under $100 and just was looking for a 2% move, which I did end up getting. I was tempted to swing a position. I would have needed to see a 15-minute trend change with some follow through at the end of the day, clearly over 103, and we didn't get it. So entered pretty much just under $100, exited 102.69, and then exited the second half, maybe 102.60 right at the end of the day to not swing that position. So I'll still be interested, but it looked too much like a potential hourly bear flag for me to want to swing it. And again, if I have a daymaker staring me in the face, why in the world am I going to swing that and expose myself to risk to not only potentially losing that daymaker, but then going red on the trade? So we're just looking for an hourly lower high to form. We'll see if the bulls can hold 98.69 support. Maybe there's a play off that support level first thing tomorrow. If we were to pull back, hold that level, and then break the high of the bounce, 103.23, that would be a little notable shift, and a daily inside bar would then form. Keep in mind, we're looking for a weekly higher low to form, which is a reason I've been interested in these trades. And Fidelity also gave me an alert today of unusual call activity for mid to late August, I think 110s and 120 calls. ZYNE, big red flag. It's a bear flag on the daily. To give back that entire move, big red flag. The red flag was the break right first thing of 1191. Very healthy hourly consolidation yesterday. Bulls have to hold 1191 and break 1248 to change the hourly trend. And we just dumped right through support first thing. There's your red flag. There's your spike in bear volume. And just like that, a huge bounce is gone. And we're looking down at 1062 and 1038 as support levels. Break 1038 and the weekly time frame will be in a downtrend with a lower high and a lower low. CWeb, bearish reaction to the CBD news. Again, weekly time frame. Not going to see continuation with this kind of pullback. In order to see continuation at this point, we got to go 32%. It's now more likely that we're going to see an equilibrium wherever we do find our bottom, high of the bounce, scouting a higher low on the weekly, then we'll look for a lower high. Just like Kron has a weekly tightening pattern into the fall, CWeb, we're going to look for a tightening pattern into the fall. And if the fall bulls show back up as they have in the past, and we start to gain some interest in the sector again, there will be some names with tightening ranges that could see some nice breaks straight into that momentum. MedMen, continued weakness. Lower highs and lower lows, only by a penny. Hourly time frame, anything under 272 is just a lower high. We're looking for the bulls to try and hold a weekly high or low compared to the all-time low, but they're not doing a good job of making us confident at all that they can. Breaking 272 would be a start. And if we break 260, 251 is the only support level. IAN dumping. It is a very clear bear, continuing to be the case. High bear volume, red Marubozu candlestick, no bounce into the end of the day. And they do have exposure to CBD products with their CBD for Life division, but it's not a significant amount of revenue, just like Curaleaf. Weekly RSI is almost oversold. Again, we just don't have support. So if there's no buying pressure, the fade continues. And the next support we're looking at is really down at 3 psychological. We're not even at extreme RSI levels. The daily is not oversold. The weekly is not oversold. The 4-hour, not oversold. We're on the verge of oversold on all these time frames. But the previous dumps where I have played these oversold bounces, the hourly, the 4-hour RSI were in the low 20s. The daily RSI was in the mid 20s. And we're just not there right now. We can always go lower. On any individual name that we look at in this sector, we can always go lower. Just keep reminding yourself that. Anything under 395 will just be a daily lower high. So we're certainly not going to anticipate the daily trend change. Even next time we bounce, we're just going to watch for another daily lower high to form. 4-hour exponential. Actually, I was thinking of a different ticker that has the 4-hour exponential resistance very clear. But even just the daily here, daily exponential resistance has been containing the price for almost 3 months at this point. CL, down at the lows, no bounce follow through after the lower wick from yesterday. Support is 1055. Then we're looking down at 1026. And when we do bounce, daily exponential resistance has been rejecting the price for a month at this point. And until that changes, this is the 4-hour actually. So this is the 4-hour exponential resistance. Daily, clear drop to lower lows already. So we have the 4-hour exponential resistance, and even when we get over that, the daily exponential resistance is going to be right behind it. So 1023 is the next support, and any bounce on the daily, anything under 1239 will just be a lower high. So it's just an instance of why this sector is so high risk and so high reward. Letter from the FDA. I mean, you see that news. Curaleaf gets a letter from the FDA about CBD products. And in this market cycle of fear, everybody's going to instantly think, uh-oh, the Fed's cracking down on CBD and they're not going to allow sales of CBD anymore. You automatically go to the worst case scenario, and that's why you see significant dumping, and it's only being magnified in this fear cycle. So we'll see if the Canadian MJ names can change their daily trends for the first time in a long time. US MJ has a lot of work to do, further downside, and just further distancing ourselves from our lower highs on either the hourly or the daily time frame because of this news on a lot of names. And that's where we stand. That's a long video. See you tomorrow. So I ended up today having the doorbell ring at 10:30, and 2 Chart Guys members told me they had got me a housewarming gift and I needed to sign for a package. And I opened the door, and there was an older couple holding a baby goat. So 2 members bought me a baby goat, and unfortunately I had to turn it away because I am not ready for a baby goat right now. I need to build fencing, I need to get the barn ready, can't be feeding a baby goat twice a day, every day, and also it's too young to be taken away from its mother at this point. But I thought that was a really funny gesture, and that's probably the best gift I'm ever going to get from somebody. So I got to play with a baby goat for a while today and meet the couple that lives 4 miles down the road. They live in community, and they do the gardening thing, and they have a bunch of dairy goats. So I'll probably end up getting a couple goats from them in the spring. But I thought that was a funny story and a really good gift.